This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 571, entitled, "Just how horrific are women's gender crimes against men?" Description. This flyer spells out in a rather emotional and intellectual way just why masculists have such a hatred of those women who commit massive gender crimes against men that last decades, that make them so massive and so hateable. The flyer itself. Just how horrific are women's gender crimes against men? By Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Feminism is a gynocentric ideology. It says nothing to women about how women oppress men. So since masculist and MGTOW ideas have yet to spread widely throughout the culture, in brackets, as of October 2022, nearly all women live the feminist delusion that gender oppression is a one-way street, that it is men who are the oppressors and it is women who are the oppressed. This is the core idea of feminism, monoconscious feminism, and as a result, most monoconscious feminists are rather feminazi bitchy, since they are angry at men for the ways that men oppress women, that feminism teaches them, for example, rape, domestic violence, sexual harassment, etc. Since there are exceedingly few female masculists at the time of writing, there is almost no awareness amongst women of how women oppress men, and in fact worse than vice versa, according to the masculists, that is, bi-conscious masculists, who are as familiar with feminist ideas as they are with masculist ideas, who thus have a real basis for comparison, who are able to compare the level of gender oppressiveness of women to men as vice versa. This flyer is directed at both sexes, aiming to teach men and monoconscious feminists that in fact many of women's gender crimes against men are in fact horrific, that is, so horrible that masculists hate those women who commit these horrific gender crimes against men. This flyer attempts to spell out why masculists see these major gender crimes that women commit against men as horrific. Just what is so horrific about them that justifies the burning hatred that masculists feel against such women? Why do masculists see these women as hateable gender criminals who are to be punished so severely that they are effectively exterminated, that is, wiped out, so that their gender criminal genes are effectively removed from the gene pool by being totally ignored by masculisted men, in brackets, who in time will be most men, as masculist and MGTOW ideas keep spreading rapidly as they are now doing across the planet? Women commit many types of gender crimes against men. Debaters often make the remark that when giving a speech, it's psychologically wise to make at most 3 main points, since any more will tax the concentration of the listeners and they will start to lose attention to what the speaker is trying to say. So this flyer will concentrate on the big 3 gender crimes that women commit against men, that masculists so hate them for, and aim to punish such women severely by totally ignoring them, not even pumping and dumping them, so that they die a slow, miserable death, rotting on the shelf, manless, loveless, sexless, babyless, and utterly rejected, wiping their gender criminal genes from the gene pool, the ultimate punishment, that is, gene extermination. Every masculist, and in time everyone, should be able to list the 3 major gender crimes that women commit against men, namely women's manslavery, women's divorce, rape, and women's forced fatherhood. This flyer tries to convey why masculists have such a hatred of these crimes and of the women who commit them against men. So, what is women's manslavery? Slavery, by definition, is working for someone else for free. Negro slavery was considered so immoral and so horrific in the 1800s that it was the root cause of the US Civil War, killing over 500,000 soldiers. Masculists see manslavery as literally 1,000 times bigger problem than was Negro slavery, since there are today several billion manslaves in the world, compared to several million Negro slaves in the US in the early 1800s. Masculists see women who don't bother to fip up, in brackets equals become fips, equals financially independent persons, close brackets, by not bothering to get a career competent education and thus become fluffies, in brackets equals traditional women who expect to be able to live off the money and labour of a man, thus by definition man-slaving him, since he works for her for free, satisfying the very definition of slavery. Man, slavery, close brackets. In the early 1830s, when William Lloyd Garrison started the first abolitionist newspaper in the US, there was little awareness of how horrific Negro slavery was. But Garrison and others like him, due to their efforts, their propaganda, their rhetoric, they persuaded millions of Northern Americans to hate Negro slavery, which by 1861 was the root cause of the US Civil War. Personally, I identify with Garrison. I argue that there are close analogies between manslavery today and Negro slavery 2 centuries ago. In my own life, I felt I was a manslave for a while. I had 2 kids with my first wife and worked at a job I hated, just to earn money so that she could stay at home raising them, while I kept the whole financial ship afloat, commuting by train to work each day in jobs I had no real interest in. Then my wife finally gave me an ultimatum to return to her country of origin, Australia, to get back to her roots, or we would separate. I did return to Oz with her, but quickly regretted the decision, and a few months later returned to my beloved Europe. I felt I lost 6 years of my life. She was a fluffy crapper, that is, a fluffy, who chose to study economically useless majors at high school and college. She trained to be a nurse, but had the brains to be a doctor, but it did not enter her head to aim to that height. She merely expected, fluffy style, to be able to find some man to work for her so she could stay at home and raise her kids. Masculists put tremendous moral pressure on women to fip up or be severely punished by not getting a man. At the rate masculists and MGTOW ideas are spreading, it looks as though it's only a question of time before nearly all men will have been influenced by masculist ideas and expect women to get off their fat parasitic asses and fip up, or to rot on the shelf, totally ignored by men who see such women as manslaving, divorce-raping, parasitic vermin. Imagine you are a young man just learning about masculist ideas for the first time, and you've been working for a fluffy wife for a few years, and you hate your job, which seems so soulless, repetitive, and you only do it to keep your family afloat. You get exposed to masculist and MGTOW ideas on the internet, watching masculist videos, etc. And you start thinking and become increasingly bitter by the month, thinking, quote, "My wife is a fluffy, a parasite, living off my money. She is a fluffy crapper. She studied fluffy crap majors at high school because she was too lazy to study career competent majors and expected her boyfriend, me, to pay for her. I studied STEM and have a well-paying job, so was seen by my wife as eminently sexploitable, so she sexed me well early in the relationship. Now she expects me to work for her, be her man-slave for decades of my life, with me doing a job only for the money that I have no real interest nor love for. I feel trapped, encaged, man-slaved, bitter, angry, wanting to break out of this man-slave cage that I'm trapped in. But the fluffy feminists control the divorce courts, so I could very well be divorce raped, which is the second big gender crime that women commit that I learn about from the Masculist videos. This is the end of part 1.